Welcome everyone to Immigrant Bazaar, a weekly podcast for immigrants by immigrants. And as usual, you have Anwar here,
And Bahram.
today we're actually going to talk about a subject that might interest a lot of you, which is entrepreneurship. So I think officially we're going to call it How to Succeed as an Immigrant Entrepreneur. And we have a guest who is very experienced, and his name is Manu, and he's in Silicon Valley right now, hustling, as they say, going after his dreams and building wonderful companies that we'll hear about. All of us will hear even more about in the future. So without further ado, I'll let Manu introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Manu. I live in San Francisco, actually around San Francisco, not in the city. I'm a co-founder and head of growth of a company called Zentist. Zentist is a dental billing platform for dental practices. I live here with my family and three of my kids. So we are struggling with online education as everybody else. And we understand that the life is not gonna be the same from now on. A lot of things are gonna change. A lot of cultures, traditions, a lot of conventions will change. So I think we can separate life into like pre-COVID and after COVID. After COVID, there are a lot of predictions that life's gonna be totally different. So I think we should be ready more to like this online life and stuff like that. And my company is also doing that. My company knows that the future of dentistry is going to change. The future of how dental offices and practices are going to work is also going to change. And that's why we are giving them tools and platform and capabilities so that they are empowered to overcome those changes and challenges that they're going to see in the future. And that's the hustle. That's what I'm working on. It's my passion, healthcare and dentistry. We've been working on the company since 2015 with my partners, and right now it's a late stage Series A company, venture backed, with decent amount of dental practices who just love us. Like our philosophy is, instead of having like thousands of practices who are okay with you, you better have like a couple hundred practices who just love you. And I think we are in that spot, and I'm really happy about that. And so a little bit information, a little bit background about myself personally. I'm one of the co-founders of a few dental chains, dental companies in Tajikistan. Especially one of them is specialized in heart surgery and angioplasty, and another company is a full scale, is complete dental, complete medical imaging and diagnostic center. We've been really successful. We really made this field popular because we started those companies like in 2010, I think 2009 and 2010. And at that time, people were building like pool clubs and like the business was totally different. The concentration of entrepreneurs was totally different. So we saw a big opportunity in like social entrepreneurship, where you can address a pain point of a society with the new technology and innovation, and you can drive down the costs of procedures and stuff like that. And we were really successful. We were featured and interviewed by there was a Russian channel, Mir TV, like Mir TV as a success story. And in 2014, I got an opportunity to work on a few startup companies, on a few ideas in the US. So I moved to Arizona in 2014 and started my entrepreneurial life here. Most of the projects on most of the companies that I started, I failed. Only one is this one is pretty good and pretty solid, but because the team is much more experienced, so there are a lot of and my partner who's the CEO of the company, he's way experienced and very passionate about this business, and very and very committed to business. Like, I think commitment is a really good keyword on a business to make it successful, and I think that is driving this company to success. And we can talk more about like
that's an amazing story. So we actually have a serial entrepreneur here who was a successful businessman outside of the US, came to the US and started successful companies here. So I think we have a lot to learn here, or a lot to share, let's say. And me and Barom are gonna grill with our questions soon, right?
Well, we hope
we all want to be entrepreneurs and make millions of dollars. Yes.
Manu, let me ask you this question, right? So I mean, you gave a very detailed, interesting background about the story that you had. Spirit of entrepreneurship was there with you even back in Tajikistan, where you grew up, you lived there before you immigrated to US. So assuming that in this country is very open, generally millions and thousands of immigrants come here. Statistically, out of those thousands, there will be some people like you have the same mindset like you, of entrepreneurial mindset, right? When you come to US first time, you have, assuming you know English and you have ideas, what you have an idea that in this country, there's specific niche, you look in specific industry where you believe you can have your own startup. So that said, what do you think would be the key steps for them as they come here to start looking for ways to set up the business? They have an idea, they may have a partner, they may have some money, not necessarily full fund, of course, but what are the steps? What do you think where they should be starting?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is, first of all, people who come, like immigrants who come to the US, they have to do the self-audit. That's the most important thing, because sometimes we read the stories about like American dream, people coming to this country and then succeeding, making billions of dollars, but it's not that easy. Of course, there are more opportunities, like government, or I don't know, like Department of Healthcare is not going to come and take over your project, or I don't know, if everything is legal, there is nobody to come and take over your projects and stuff, right? So you kind of like, you are safe. There is a rule of law here. You can grow. The market is huge. The market is huge, right? So you can use economy of scales. Your reach advantage is extremely high. The logistics cost is very low here, like comparing to, for example, Tajikistan, right? Tajikistan is landlocked, and like to bring a product from US to Tajikistan, or from Tajikistan to US, the majority of the cost is logistics. It's not even the product itself, right? So value added is relatively small if you compare it to total cost, right? So in the US, you don't have that. You have a lot of opportunities, and that's why you have a lot of competition as well. So all those traditional, if you have a traditional hunch, like if you've been in the business of, I don't know, some pistachios in Tajikistan, the US market is pretty much the same. The only change is your reach is much, much bigger, right? You have there is more internet penetration, and more people have mobile phones. Like you can reach out to people through much, much more channels than you would have reached out to them in Tajikistan, for example. That's one of the advantages. So coming back to the point, you have to audit yourself, is you have to figure out what's your strength, right? Like if you're really good in digital marketing, there are really good teams right now. Like, for example, I'm really amazed at what Kyrgyzstan and Kyrgyz youth are doing. So they're planning to build, to train 50,000 IT developers, right? Because they understand that 50,000, like IT engineers and developers working for foreign companies, for example, over freelancer.com, or I don't know, all those, websites, and working on projects means bringing US dollars to the country, right? And that's really high impact project and initiative that those guys have, and I love that. And they already have some success. There are a lot of, there are not, I don't know a lot, but there are a few curious companies that are really, really successful, like globally, right? So we can learn a lot from them. We can learn a lot from Ukrainians. Like in Ukraine, You already have digital marketers in Ukraine who can outperform anybody who like I work with who's in the US, right? Like this globalization gives pretty much a playing field and more equal advantage now, right? Because right now for me it doesn't matter, or it doesn't matter if I hire those people, like 5 people from US, or if I hire them from Eastern Europe, right? And that's why in Tajikistan you can learn those skills. You can learn the skill of digital marketing. You can learn skills of coding. You can learn skills of like AI development, machine learning. You can learn them and you can come and you can implement them really fast, right? Also, you have to audit yourself, like what is your skill set? If you are somebody who's not tech savvy and who really likes trade, like you have to monetize those skills really fast here. Like what you can do is you can open your like Shopify store and start selling stuff on Amazon, right, or eBay or whatever. If you are an engineer, you can quickly get a job here, like work for some companies, learn stuff, and then there are framework of things you do in order to launch your own startup company, right? I can talk about this a little more in details because this might be interesting for people. So and if you're a good salesman, you can go sell cars or sell real estate, or like there are like opportunities that are really attainable. Like you can train yourself for a few weeks and can become a really good car salesman, right? And go to like this Mercedes and BMWs and work with them. And then English is important because like one thing I see though, like a lot of people who I meet, like this is anecdotal, right? Like qualitative. It's not, I don't have a statistics, but a lot of people who I talk to who come from Tajikistan, their English is pretty good. Like people can at least understand them, but they don't have the confidence. They say that, I have to improve my English. I have to keep improving, blah, blah, blah. They want like perfect English. They want to talk like, I don't know, James Bond, like with perfect English. I don't know. Who cares, right? You have basic English, you have basic understanding, just talk. I've worked at companies like large and small. I worked at Yahoo. I worked at smaller companies. There are some people who you don't even understand what they're talking about, right? Because the accent is so thick. But they don't have they don't have inferiority complex. They don't care about that. They know that it's a little harder, but you'll get used to that, right? And everybody's okay with that. Like nobody cares. Times have changed. But the skills, for example, and okay, let me pause here because I can talk for hours, but let me get some questions.
No. I think you brought the right point. So I mean, just like when you have a company, right? Back in my marketing years in college classes, right? So you have something called SWOT analysis, right? So like strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right? So basically, when you step here in US first time and you have that entrepreneurial mindset, first thing you step back and think, what are you good at? What are you good at? What English. You said English is important, but what are you good at? So I'm just trying to kind of reinstate to what you already said for the sake of listeners, so that first you need to know what's your background and what are you good at. If you're good at math, don't jump in and get into doctors, kind of ideas that I've worked. So think about what you can do with your math skills, right? If you're good in sports, right, what you can do is like, there's so many things going on nowadays within the world of sports, right? Opportunities in, many things. So I think we can talk a little bit more about it probably later, but I think that's a good start.
Yeah, I also wanted to point out, when it comes to English and accents, I've seen in articles, I don't know how statistically strong that is, but the percentage of entrepreneurs among immigrants compared to native-born Americans is actually much higher. I don't know what the actual numbers are or what the ratios are, but it does seem like people who have immigrated, they are risk takers. Usually, because they're coming to an unknown country, they uprooting themselves. So that kind of shows determination. That shows like being open to change. That kind of is similar, in certain ways to entrepreneurial spirit. So I'm assuming that in tech, like where you are right now, being an immigrant is not like frowned upon in any way or thought that you're not good enough. I guess you see a lot more immigrants. Is that true?
Well, I live in California, so by nature, you see a lot of immigrants in California because that's a place where a lot of immigrants are attracted to because they feel like they're at home. Like everybody's different here. California is much more liberal than different than like your parts, right? And that's why the natural attraction of immigrants is towards California, LA, and San Francisco, and in here, like you have, it's very hard to understand what's local here, right? Like because so much communities. I think local here is entrepreneurship mindset, like entrepreneurial mindset, right? Uh, and in terms of numbers or in terms of companies founded by immigrants, I think yeah, like look at Plot, look at latest success companies, right? Like not Plot but Stripe, like for example. I think Stripe was founded by a couple Irish guys, and then eBay was founded by Iranian guy. I mean, when I say Iranian, it's either first generation or born here, right? First generation or fresh immigrant. So eBay is that, and Box.com, and like uh, all kind of like Udemy, for example, is it's like you can just uh, and if the criteria we take is and we have to decide what is the criteria, like is it a unicorn, is it a company that evaluated at like $1 billion or more, or is it just a well-known, or is it just maybe we have a bias, maybe we notice these companies because we are immigrants ourselves and their stories relate to us, and we think that a lot of companies are built by these immigrants, right? But maybe there are like 90% of other companies that are built by guys from Utah and like local guys, and we just don't see that because we have that we have a bias, right? But at least this bias that we have, or this information, what it can give us is that people can succeed. Like the immigrant status here is not a blocker, right? I could say that being a woman or being black is a blocker because we still in this country have some kind of structural discrimination against women and against black people. Maybe that's even a bigger barrier, maybe, right? And
Spoken English is not as much of a big deal, you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why entrepreneurs who come here, like, again, entrepreneur is somebody who creates jobs, right? But for us, it's somebody who's not doing waiting at a restaurant, or who's not just driving Uber, right? Or driving, I don't know, doing some kind of service where you're paid for physical, like for physical work, right? More than like intellectual work and creative work. If we say that, we can group like entrepreneurs into somebody who creates jobs, or somebody who works for a bigger company, who works for a company that's creating a job, right? That's so in audit, you can first, I think my suggestion would be first start working for somebody who's really good, who has done things, because there's so much to learn. Like I had a bias, like when I started this business in 2014, like I was really good at sales. I would convince people that, hey, this is a good idea, right? We would talk to investors, we would talk to people. Everybody would be like, wow, these guys are gonna kill it, right? But when you really start working, the things are different. The things are not that easy. You have a lot to learn. There's a lot you have to read, and I think that joining like a fresh immigrant who comes, it would be better to join a company or a startup and learn a lot at the beginning. It would be much. It would be like a good boot camp for them, instead of learning all these mistakes. And then like us, for example, we wasted years of our time building something, right? We didn't know what was MVP and how to validate the product first, right? Or a feature first, and then start selling. So in our head, we already built this huge software system that could manage hospitals and blah, blah, blah. We spent hundreds of thousands and years building it. And then at the end, when we started marketing, people are not using it, right? And then we start, oh, why people are not using? Let's do a user research. Let's do a journey. Oh, there's something called journey, mapping. Oh, what is this? Okay, let's do that. Oh, there's something that ideal user persona. Oh, who's this user persona? There are so many things. Then you have to learn by making mistakes, that if we joined a startup like and worked there for a year, we would know these things and we would be more prepared. That's one of the things.
Yeah, the techniques, I've heard there's lean approach, lean startup. I guess what you're referring is like join a startup company that's already there and successfully doing those things, learn the tools, and then employ them with your own idea, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And then there's another bias that we have from I think I see it in a lot of people with a background like similar to mine, is the belief that I have an amazing idea, like the thing that I have is crazy, it's just gonna kill it, you know. And
Yeah.
and I'm really afraid of sharing it, because if I share, this guy is also gonna do the same thing. And we had the same kind of mindset. uh but then nobody cares about the idea. There are so many ideas, it's all about execution. The craziest idea, like a lot of people call me and pitch me their ideas, like, hey, what do you think? They don't call me and pitch me anymore, because I start telling them, I play advocate of devil, and tell them how difficult it is, what are the difficulties, so that they,
execution, difficulty in execution, you mean?
yeah, difficulties, and not only execution, but also to validate the idea, right? Because if somebody has a crazy idea, I have to be skeptic about this idea, like, because a nature of rational person, right, is a skeptic.
Negative.
Yeah, like you have to be skeptic first and say that, why you even think that this is a good idea? Like, how did you validate that this is a good idea? Like, do you have people who tell you that, oh, this is crazy, I'm ready to pay you if you build this for me, right?
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, you're all negative, blah blah blah. It's not about negativity, it's about like validation. How did you validate that this idea is really cool, right? So I'm gonna disrupt this like, I don't know, I'm gonna disrupt like cleaning service. How are you gonna do that? Oh, this is how I'm gonna do that. But did you validate? No, right? So, and then it comes back to what you just said, right? Lean startup, right? Lean startup is, you don't have a software, you don't have a lot of stuff, you just validate this idea with existing tools.
What you're describing really sounds like science, because in science you're supposed to be skeptic. Whoever comes up with this claim, you have to prove it. Where's the data? You have to validate it, basically. So it really sounds like science, but there's the money part of it. So in science, from my own experience, there's not much money, but in tech, we have heard there's millions and millions and billions. So would you suggest someone who wants to get into some startup to move to California, to be closer to Silicon Valley, or is that not that necessary?
I think again, as I mentioned in the beginning of conversation, like pre-COVID-19, I would say that, yeah, move to San Francisco, I would say that. But after that, I don't know, I'm a little concerned, and I don't know what's gonna happen. And there is and I follow like a bunch of investors, and there's like two type of people now, right? One pro Exodus and against Exodus. Like those people who want to stay in San Francisco and still say that there is a value of this network. There is a value. I mean, the reason why everything is in San Francisco actually, right, is because, like, let's say in some developing countries, they say, we will build startup infrastructure and we will build startups. We are building these buildings, right? But it's not about that. It's about the whole cycle. It's about talent, right? Why Silicon Valley? Because there's Berkeley, there's Stanford, there's NASA. Like, that's why it's Silicon Valley, right? And then there is like tolerance, right? Because like all kind of people, like be it crazy, like for me, like be it crazy and stuff, like, or be it whatever, was always tolerated in this place, right? So a lot of crazy people with crazy ideas would come here and actually build crazy stuff, right? And that's why Silicon Valley, and also people, like, and also creativity, right? And also, I don't know, probably marijuana, because people would smoke, and when you smoke, you become more creative. And when you're creative, I don't know, you do some things that disrupt stuff, right? Like, I think it's a combination. Why Silicon Valley? There are companies who are competing. I mean, not companies, but countries, like new states and cities, even countries. Like New York is competing, Texas is competing, Austin, Cary is competing, right? Raleigh, North Carolina, with the Research Triangle, they competing. Boston is competing. Boston and San Diego competing for health startups, as well as DC, Virginia, and Johns Hopkins University, cluster. So there's a lot of competition for that. But still, when you look at numbers, San Francisco is just killing it. San Francisco is just crazy. It doesn't matter what you do in New York and to Houston or whatever. Silicon Valley is still killing it, right? And everything new is still coming up from San Francisco. All these mergers and acquisitions, all these crazy investors who have names, they're still here, So being here is definitely you're gonna benefit from this network, right? But again, how are you gonna use this network? Are you gonna go and socialize and meet them, or if you come to San Francisco just sit at home and do nothing, then you can sit at home and do nothing in Florida and expect the same results, right?
So the point is, I mean, as you said, after once you audit yourself, look for your skills, and make sure that, be humble, right? So I mean, understand that, you're not the only one that has the greatest idea. Try to work with somebody. Try to, in that relationship. I have a question for you in regards to having, I guess, partners in regards to investments, right? So for example, when you have an idea, you went to, I don't know, maybe your parents were rich from Tajikistan, you went to, let's say, Stanford, and then you've graduated Stanford, you come up with some ideas. At the same time, that you got some rich uncles in Tajikistan who have money. So when it comes to investments, right? So is that a good idea to also involve some foreign investors in your startup, or is it better just to stick around with just local investors here who you can pitch and get their funds?
Yeah, it's a good point. I would stay away not only from foreign investors, but also from not smart investors, right? Because the money that you want to get is the smart money. So the money you want to get from Andersen Horowitz of this world, right? You want to get money from them because they give you the money and then they help you grow. They help you introduce to their network. If you get money from some guy that from a foreign country and you don't know how even they got the money, they're not gonna help you grow the company. They're gonna actually pull you back. They're gonna keep calling you every month and, hey, what happened with my money? Because first of all, there is like private equity investors, or private fund investors, and then there are like venture investors. Venture investors are people who are entrepreneurs themselves, most likely, and they know the field, the technology, the field where they invest very well, and then they invest in very high risk companies, right? So it's like probability of a company succeeding is like 6%, and they make bets. They make such kind of bets, and their expectations from you and your company is really, if you fail, they want you to fail like in a couple of years, so that they know that it's not worked out, right? They're going to invest in something else. They're just going to cut loss. But if you get money from a rich uncle from somewhere overseas, for them this is not such kind of investment, right? For them, it's like you have to be making 20% a year at least, because that's the cost of the money. And then for them, it's like your skill is secondary. The main thing that made it is the money that he gave, right? So these are anecdotals, and then also I know from experience that's the case, and that's why you should just stay away from those kind of investments and from those kind of people.
It's a very valuable advice, because you're saying it's anecdotal, but truly, if you think about it, if you think about countries from our Central Asia, like our cultures, right? Everybody, when you live over there, even when you visit those countries, they think that in here everything is easy. You invest money, you buy business, it just generates money and you send it back. That's not how it works. Like you were saying, right? You need to have somebody who knows how to execute the business, somebody who knows how to kind of, like you're saying, investors support the business. So I think it's a truly valuable advice that even there'll be money available out there, don't just go say, okay, give me the money, I'll figure out. No, find the person who is actually right for you, right for your business, fit for your business. So they also have common interests for you to succeed, not just interest to make you money and you make money and give it to them, right? So yeah, that's a great point.
Exactly. And stay away and think about like those rich uncle in Tajikistan, like how they made this money, right? How they made their money.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
just think about intellectually how they made their money. And do you want to associate with those kind of people with that IQ level or with that kind of skill set of making money, right? You don't need to. Like, I think you should just stay away from that. Take money from smart investors, from smart people who can not only give you money, but but they're gonna always challenge you. They're gonna always help you. They're gonna help you grow. They're gonna like introduce you to the network. And even here in the US, there are some like VC funds that people don't want to take money from, right? There are some VCs.
Very interesting. So they deliberately reject, like VC wants to give money, they say no.
Yeah, there were a lot of articles. Like there's a lot of articles. Recently, there was an article about a douchebag VC, right? This VC was so bad that he would invest in a couple of companies and then use their resources and blah, 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 like there are VCs like that as well, like crazy and stupid guys, and nobody wants to work with them. There are some VCs who are so ignorant. There's one VC who's just, I don't know, I think somebody's wife's father died or like in a car accident, if I'm not mistaken. And she was like, hey, you know what? I have a portfolio. Like, do you want to take a look at their product? They help alleviate cases like yours and blah, blah, blah. Right? Like, how would you even in a moment of sadness, you would go and pitch your company to those people? Like there are all kinds of VCs and nobody wants to work with them. I'm not telling even like, not even like foreign countries, but even local, even from something, you have to be really careful who you're taking money from.
Yeah, I think this is probably an important point, because I'm imagining an immigrant, let's say from Ukraine or Africa. They have big dreams. They go to San Francisco, and there's a VC willing to give them, let's say, $1.1 million. But then they have to think, is it smart money? Should I take it or not? Because that question, I don't think it would really appear in their mind. This is a very different mindset, I gotta say.
Yeah. And also, and then there is also ethics, right? Like in Silicon Valley, for example, what you can do is like, even if you raise like $2-3 million, there are some things like, it's not your money. They gave this money for your company, for growth, right? This is this is the money given for different purposes. And what you can do is you can get a fair salary for yourself. Like you can set a fair salary. Let's say you raise $3 million. What you do is you set a fair salary for yourself and leave regularly. This $3 million that you got is not your money yet. That money is most likely you're gonna burn without even becoming profitable, right? So you have to be honest, and you have to be you have to be a good player, and you have to be ethical, because otherwise, once the rumor is out that you raise the money but then you spend it on somewhere, right? There are companies who celebrated like seed or Series A, whatever. They travel to like Florida for vacation or whatever. And the investors were like, what the hell are you guys doing? This is our money. Like, why you guys go and celebrate, right? Or drinking champagnes in Las Vegas, like renting out the whole, the whole flat and just having fun. There are a lot of cases like that as well. And investors never invest in them.
Yeah, you get blacklisted, I'm sure, because no one would want to.
Yeah, and also
on your entertainment.
Exactly, and also this idea that I raised $3 million, or like imagine like for example, you raised X amount and you're from Tajikistan, right? Like people are like, oh wow, now you have that much money. It's not your money. It's like only this money is gonna be out like in a year or so, like only as a salary to employees, right? And like important thing is to know that this money is not yours, and you have fiduciary responsibility. You have to deliver on your promise. You have to build a product, and you have to make people happy, right?
Yeah. So I think since we're talking about investors, investments, there's the concept of runway, and I've thought a lot about entrepreneurship, because I'm in pharma. There's a lot of opportunities. There are different ideas, but then things, let's say in natural sciences, they're very expensive to do. And I was wondering, let's say, again, a hypothetical fresh, well, not so fresh, let's say 4 or 5 year immigrant from Africa or Eastern Europe wants to go to San Francisco and start, he or she has a great idea, but then they need a salary, they need to live on something, right? Yeah. So what do you think should be the runway? How should they think about it? Like 6 months, 1 year of personal funds to use, or how does it work usually?
I think it really depends on the type of product. Like usually when you have a fast growing product where you have a viral growth, usually in your finances you can see that if everything is the same, if your growth is 10% month over month, right, it compounds, and like at some point you're making, let's say, you're becoming profitable. And what is that point that you are becoming profitable, right? So like you can adjust. I understand your question. I understand why you ask it, but it's a little hard to answer that, right? Because it's just combination of factors, and a lot of companies, like it's not saying, for some companies they can raise money with a 3-month runway. Some companies, if they have like 8-10 month runway, they're panicking already, right? Because they're not going to be able to raise the next fund. So it's very hard to say. But I can give you an example. I can just tell you that for standard of living in San Francisco or Bay Area, if a person wants to move here and live without a family, like I think they have to have like 100K a year or something like that for their expenses if they want to live okay, not super comfortably, but okay. But if you are family, then you have to have at least like $170,000-$180,000 a year. Should be your budget if you want to live like okay, because with family the responsibilities are different. You want them to go to good schools, and in San Francisco, imagine it's like the most expensive city in the world or area in the world, right? So you have to like keep in mind that actually Boston is also surprisingly very expensive, and you have to keep in mind that that's something that, and it's only about you. Now imagine about your other co-founders and stuff. Like the money that you raise, $1 million, is just going to be out like in a year just because of salary. That's why the type of product should be like, you have to know when you want to come here, like when you want to come to Silicon Valley. And it's very important to decide when you're going to leave Silicon Valley, because at some point, if you think that like the company is comfortable, like I don't know, it's like my thought is that you can leave from Silicon Valley, like your team, your core team can stay here, but then if you have like 40-50 engineers living miserably on $150,000 a year, living miserably in Bay Area, they better move somewhere else and live like normal human beings, Yeah, so I think
hybrid model is going to be the one that you believe is the good one. So let me ask you this. I mean, related to this, right? So that I personally have finished school, and from back home, and my classmates actually ended up doing different things. One of them went to tech, one of them went to, like doctors. And so assuming I became an entrepreneur myself here, right? So what do you think about immigrants involving workforce from back home doing outsourcing in terms of, assuming, of course, internet connections well and everything else is good, and the access and speed and everything. Is it common? Is it bad? Because it's cost, number one, it's much cheaper, right, to do it, because it's you pay less, and of course they don't have to live in San Francisco where 150,000 is nothing, So is it common practice for early entrepreneurs, or is it something that can be done probably a little bit later, once you're more established and once you need to grow, and your growth requires you to keep costs as low as possible, because to be making money at the end? So what would be your advice?
I think I don't see anything bad if you involve talent back like overseas from the US. But for example, for marketing, for growth, for product, like VP of engineering, these kind of positions, I would still hire locally, unless I have really, really good candidates from overseas. Like These are the things. There are some positions where you can compromise on cost, like cost and saving and savings, but some positions you would really care about the like talent and experience of the talent. Like normally, like I don't know, maybe like conventionally, you look here in Silicon Valley because people of VP level of people who work like let's say in five crazy startups. They worked at Google, like Apple and Stripe, and like that kind of talent, hiring them and letting them, like, why do you even hire people, right? Think about, you're building a company and now you want to hire somebody else. If you want to hire somebody else and teach him, uh, then you're just wasting your time, right? But if you want to hire somebody else who can teach you or who can do something better than you, that's a progress. Unfortunately, one of the things is, like, for example, at Zentist, we always try to hire our next people who are much, much smarter, much, much crazier, and have much, much more experience than us, for example. That has been the goal, because if somebody is less experienced than me, it will take my time to teach him, and I don't know anything myself, like, I want people who know much more than me. And that's the reason. If somebody in Tajikistan knows more than you how to do business here in the US, of course, hire him. But at the end, you want to grow the company. And you're not going to grow company with your own talent, with your own skills. You always need people who are better than you, and you always need to hire and find people who are better than you so that they help you grow the company. That's how you're going to grow.
So you have to trade the good balance between cost saving and looking for the talent that's going to execute your business plan to succeed in the long term, right? So you have to kind of maybe sacrifice in the short term, some costs be cash flow negative, right, for a while, but at the same time that you're in the long term you have the goal of getting the right people in your team and who will do right execution to get the profitability that you need to.
Yeah, and also you have to be tech savvy, and you have to be aware of what's going on around you, right? Like, yep. I don't think in 10 years there will be a need for like developers as much, because right now everything is going to no code, right? Like MakerPad, like Bubble. There are so many solutions where you can build pretty like complicated software, like pretty complicated apps and websites without knowing how to code, right? So I think that part is, I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't think that there will be a huge like growing demand as we have now. I don't think that's going to be the case. So you have to, like, again, it's always like, hey, you have engineers who work with tools and who work with processes, but then you need also art and liberal people, liberal arts people who speak with other people, and then who can understand the pain point and who can build something, who can tell you what to build, right? So I think that's been like switching. At first it was like creative people, but then with all the nerds and I think with NASA and with Apple, the reign of nerds started. Like, you have to be coder, engineer, or something that smart to figure out stuff. But now it's again changing, because now you have people who are really good, like product managers. Especially good product managers are gonna be probably the hottest new job or positions in the future, right? Because product managers are people who understand both sides. They understand demand and the market, and then they understand products, how to build it, and they tell engineers what to build, right? Like, these people, product managers, like, if I would be the country of Tajikistan, for example, I would say that I'm going to prepare not 50,000 developers, but I'm going to prepare 50,000 product managers. And all of them are going to be working for Apples and Googles and, like Cisco's of the world. And that's how I'm going to, like, turn over my economy. Like, I would think that. I would bet on that, right? Because these people know how to build stuff. And now you don't need engineers. And now these guys can build their own stuff. Can you imagine what kind of power?
So you think that no-code wave, it's got to get even stronger? I've heard about Bubble. I've actually checked out their website. It looked very interesting. You can actually, there's, I think, tutorials that teach you how to build your YouTube or eBay, I think. It was really cool. So you think this is gonna get even more?
Yeah, because now you have Notion, and Notion is an amazing database, right? You don't need to know SQL anymore. Like you can build your database on like Airtable. Airtable is a crazy database. Like the things that you can do with Airtable, if you just know that tool, and with a front, like some kind of front-facing builder, like for example, Bubble and Airtable, you can put like 5, 6 people, and you can build that. You know, you can build Salesforce with that.
Wow.
Like you can build. I don't. Maybe some kind of machine learning and AI components maybe cannot be built, but everything else can be built already. Like, so I think that's where the world is going. Like a lot of things are changing. Like Notion, especially Notion and Airtable, these guys are crazy tools.
It's very interesting because we had an episode with someone who had a lot of experience in IT sector, software development, and we had an episode basically on how to start a career in that sector. Now you're telling us from Silicon Valley that it's got to be both. You got to understand the technology, I guess, how the code is written or what's behind the product, but you also have to know the other side, what the customers want, and that creative side, let's say. So
Yeah.
that's
think about in 10 years, what's going to happen to accountants, right? Like look at machine learning and AI. Look at the way these algorithms are being developed, and the progress is huge, right? So like accounting, I don't think that in 10 years you're going to need accountants. They're going to be obsolete. Who cares? Like nobody's going to need their skills anymore, right? Because once you figure out all the variables in an accounting, and once this algorithm knows what to do in all these scenarios, in all these cases, who needs accountants anymore? Like you don't need them. What else is there? Like drivers, right? When Tesla fully automates the Tesla cars, which I think will happen for sure, 100%, nobody will need drivers. Like you're not going to need to drive a car yourself, right? So many things going to change. You're not going to need a driver's license. You're not going to need to, I don't know, like so many skills are not going to be needed, right? Like think about when people had horses, right? Like there were whole industries that served horses, right? Who needs them anymore? Like nobody needs them anymore. When you have cars, those industries are dying, right? So accountants and this kind of like process skills will be replaced by AI for sure, very, very soon.
Yeah, these are, this could actually be a topic for a separate episode because this reminded me, I've seen like a newspaper clip from late 1800s from the US. I don't remember what newspaper, New York Times maybe, I don't know. So they were predicting a doomsday because there was so many horses and beagles, and there was too much of horse manure, excuse me, on the streets of New York, and people were getting sick. And people were saying that this is gonna be, because we're all moving to cities, people, there's so much horse manure, we're gonna get sick and we're gonna die. This is the end of the world. And then, Ford comes along with the cars, and automobiles take over that industry. So you're right. There's a lot of things that can change that. Most of the people may not have any idea at this point. In 10, 15 years, things could definitely change. And I think for immigrants, especially because, we come as immigrants and we want to find our place in the society. But if you look for your place in the society with the outlook of that just next year and not 10, 15 years, you might get in trouble.
Yeah. And also, it also depends on your level of comfort. Like what kind of level of comfort you want, right? If you're okay with getting paid minimum wage and have like a normal life, everything is normal, and then it's fine. But if you're ambitious, you have to think about all these changes, right? Or maybe, who knows, maybe when everything is going to be automated, there's gonna like new industries will be created to serve this automation somehow. I don't know yet how, but somehow, right? Because when Ford came up with cars, now think about all these oil change places, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
on every corner.
New jobs
new
will be created.
opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are you gonna be? I think change is always for people who are ready for change. It's an opportunity because they look at it as an opportunity. They're ready for it. They're looking for it. They already have 5 crazy ideas. They are testing, for the change. And then the people who are not ready for this change, it's a challenge for them. Like they're afraid of this change because they're not ready. They don't know what's going to happen. They probably going to lose everything, right? And that's why we gotta keep an eye on what's going on in the world, where the world is going, where the technology is going, right? Because we might think sometimes we think that we're not connected. Like I know a lot of people in Tajikistan that like in a few years the value of US dollars versus our currency like plummeted, right? But then they're like, oh, who cares? Like who cares? Like it's so money for me. I'm like, yeah, but everybody cares because now your purchasing power became less, right? Now you can buy less stuff with that money, and you chose this, and then we have a lot of debates with that, and it's the same here. Like if you say that, hey, who cares? Technology is gonna do something, go somewhere, like if you remember Amazon, when Amazon became popular in the US, people who were ready for this, who saw an opportunity, they started selling stuff on Amazon. And right now, if you have like 1,000 reviews of a good selling product on Amazon, it can bring you like $5,000 a month just of passive income, right? You just have this page, you maintain, you got all the licenses and brands and names protected in Amazon. There's a factory or factories in China, producing it, directly shipping to the customers. You're just doing nothing. You're just, occasionally managing it, right? Like those people who saw this change 20 years ago, 10 years ago, when it was just coming up and built those stores, utilized it. Right now they're making hell lot of money. I know people who make like $50,000, $60,000 just, and they don't do anything, right? And I mean, they kind of check like what's going on, but then they have hired people. They have stocks they have like warehouses in Nevada, for example. They bring stuff from China and distribute. Like people who saw this opportunity, they already built on top of that, right? So right now, for example, Gumroad, if you have heard about it or no, Gumroad.com, I think it's a marketplace for creative people, right? So some people, what they do is they go and I don't know, they design, let's say, iPhone, icons. It can be a cool iPhone icon. I don't know, like I can design an iPhone icon. There are tools now. I can just go and design an iPhone icon, and there are people who are gonna like it, right? And you can make a couple $1,000s every month from just people buying this iPhone icon for $10, right? Mm-hmm. So there are so much opportunities where you can test, try, keep an eye on, and when you are in this kind of marketplaces in that level of awareness, for example, it's going to be easier for you. And if you have a community of people who are on this level of awareness and share this information with each other and help each other, I think that's the foundation and bricks of success. If you're going to be thinking about, where to buy a car so that like I can sell it for this, like these businesses, these things are not, they're very short term, right? You cannot build wealth on that. We have to think about how we can build wealth, not just make money, but build wealth, how we can do that, right? There's, for example, an app, it's called, what's it called? Prosper, right? So Prosper is like lending. I don't know if anybody's like, some people are not against lending, they don't do that, who cares? But some people are okay with lending, right? What Prosper does is it's a community of people. Instead of banks, they just come up with the money and then they lend it to people and make on commission, on APR, on percentage, right? Like these are the ideas.
It's like a virtual bank. Community.
Yeah, it's like a bank, but not with your money, with everybody else's money. And it's just when a lot of people are financing some stuff, right? Like you can do the same thing with like Islamic financing, for example. There are, I don't know, like millions of people who don't take money from credit cards because of the APR, right? But they can take it, but they can do like, I still don't know what's the difference between, like Islamic financing and this APR. It's exactly the same in my head. I don't know what's the difference, maybe branding, but if you care about that, what you can do is you can just buy stuff and sell it to them with your profit over a period of time, right? So there's a huge market there. Like maybe somebody will come up with this, right, with this fintech idea and start like for example a student who doesn't buy a laptop with a credit card because it's APR, but he can buy it for a wholesome money and make a equal payments of like for 12 months, like Islamic financing. Like for him, you can be a value, for example, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, you look for customers and whatever the niche that you find, and you try to serve that niche. I think in general, there's a lot that immigrants can learn. And I think so far we've touched on very interesting topics. I don't know if Barom has got.
I think I have one question, probably my last question, because I think we did we did go discuss about beginning how you get here, ideas and stuff. But what other you at the beginning you mentioned, even before show, you mentioned some pitfalls, some mistakes you had, right? So can you talk about things that probably more like, because when you immigrant, right, you have your own cultural mindset, right? So I mean, you're not born here. Even you're born here, your parents are not born here, right? So you're like first generation, right? So what are the things as an entrepreneur, like mistakes, common things? Maybe like you don't have to list all of them. Maybe a few of them, like you believe that there are really no-nos that you try to avoid as much as you can. What would you think?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. One of the main things is assumption, like assumption that the thing that you're building, the thing that you're trying is somehow needed by the market, right? So that's why when you see a lot of betas, or you see a lot of like products, they're really cool, but then when you click and want to sign up, it says, hey, leave your email, I'm going to add you to waitlist, right? Like Robinhood was like that, for example. It was like, you hear that, hey, Robinhood, this is an app that does this, lets you invest in stock, and you're like, oh, this is so cool, I want it. And then you sign up, but then it says, hey, you're in waitlist. That's measuring, that's a hypothesis, right? Like the key thing here, as Anwar mentioned, is scientific. Like business entrepreneur has to be scientific. You have to have a hypothesis, right? And then you have to test this hypothesis with a few like experiments, and then you have to validate it. Like, does the expected OKR, like key results and metrics, did you get the expected result or not? If not, then you run either like more experiments, or if you think that these experiments are enough to validate that this hypothesis is not met, like this is not valid, you just change your hypothesis, right? Like, and then change your hypothesis, and then experiment it again. So a lot of companies, when they have a hypothesis and when they want to experiment and test something, they do it just with one page, right? It's like one message. It's like, if you think that everybody's gonna buy a banana, right? And now you say that my market size is 1 million people. If 1 million people come to my website and start buying these bananas, I have to build a database. Like, you can build a lot of stuff to sell banana, but then you go to Facebook and say, hey guys, anybody want banana? And nobody answers, right? And then you open
build all of that for nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have a landing page, you run ad campaigns on Instagram, you pay money to TikTok users, I don't know, celebrities, influencers, and then they say, hey guys, if you want banana, just go here, right? So people who want it, they go to your landing page, they click it, and then you say that, oh, okay, I got your email, I'm gonna when the banana is ready, I'm gonna let you have it, right? But now now you're in a wait list. That's like validating this hypothesis, right? And I think one of the key actions that we have to take is acknowledge that our idea is not the best idea. We have to know that. I know that it hurts, but we have to assume that our idea is not the best. That's why we always have to build a hypothesis first. We say that, okay, my idea that everybody's gonna buy a banana is based on in Tajikistan, like I don't know, I'm in Shahri now, and everybody in Shahri now is buying banana from me. Why they're not buying here, right? So you have to have some hypothesis, but then you have to experiment and test it. And to test it, you have to, as Anwar mentioned, lean startup, lean company, lean testing. Right now, you can do everything just with one single page. You can just test if there's a demand, test if there's a product market fit, test if people, like it or not. And then after that, you just keep building on top of each other. And this is number one. And number two, I would say, is MVP, like minimum viable product or minimum marketable product, right? Let's say if you want a banana, just build a small yellow banana that you can eat that's decent, right? The taste is decent. Don't think about banana should be perfect. It should have digital codes. It should have this feature. It should have that feature. When you eat, you think about your grandma, like, don't think about these features.
Don't try to make it perfect.
Yeah, early at the stage about banana. Just try to give it to them, to people. And then you can get the feeling, and then you can start talking about features and building about features, right? That's also really important. These are all the mistakes that we made. Like building, like there are a few companies and like we started like that with very strong hypotheses without testing them, just like show it to the market and then have like crickets, right? Nothing. And then you're like, okay, what should I do? Oh, let me learn how to build companies. Oh, it clearly says first build hypothesis, build lean, blah blah. There's some people talking so much about this, but we are like, I know the best. So yeah, I don't know if
that's really valuable, because I mean, as you said, I can imagine like lots of people would think exactly like you would be making those kind of mistakes, right? You'd be assigned, oh yeah, I have this pistachios I've been selling a lot in Turkey, right? I'm gonna do really well in San Francisco, because these are really great, and San Francisco has this many people, statistically this many eat pistachios, that. And of course, you're gonna go, crickets. So yeah, that's really valuable. I think
it's actually valuable for our podcast specifically because we just starting out. Our listeners probably will know that we don't have that many episodes. We just starting out. We testing waters with different formats, lens, topics. So this is a lesson for us too as we starting out on this journey. So I think we, I kind of feel sorry, like we're taking advantage of your time so much, and I know that you're a busy person. But I do want to ask one more question, if it's possible. So you mentioned Y Incubator at some point, I believe, and I've heard a lot about these accelerator programs. In different areas. I think in Boston area, there's a couple of them. Well, more than a couple, definitely for biotech and pharmaceutical. So do you think those are, first of all, are they absolutely necessary? And if, yeah, well, either way, are they good for your venture in general?
I think they're really good because I can, from my own experience, our company being part of 500 startups here in San Francisco, we learned a lot. Our mindset changed. We spoke to, like, we got mentorship from people who are crazy in the industry, and everybody wants to help, right? Everybody really wants to help. It's not like, hey, you know what, I'm going to help you. But I imagine, like in some other places where I have experience of doing business, people in position of power would be like, hey, you know what, I'm going to help you out, but then you're going to have to give me my cut, right? This kind of things, like not even close. Like people really want to help you. And I'm talking about like people who running like billion-dollar companies, million-dollar companies, right? That they just see it as giving back to community as well. They just like to entrepreneurship community, and you feel this spirit, right? You feel the spirit of entrepreneurship, of helping each other. Like I have seen competitors coming. I've seen my competitors helping us out with suggestions, and we were helping our competitors, and with suggestions and with experiments and thinking of how the common challenges we have, like how we best can tackle and stuff like that, right? So this is, I think, what's beautiful in Silicon Valley, is that community, right? This community is really, really cool. So to get to the point, like if you get into YC, for example, YC became such a brand that like probably in the beginning it was like you graduate from YC, and then companies, for investors, you would be like, oh, this company graduated from YC, let's invest in them. And at some point it changed to like, oh, they got to YC, let's invest in them, right? Your value is, at some point it's like, hey, they applied to YC already, like it's a chance for us. If they get to YC, they're gonna most likely gonna be successful, right? So YC has become not only a boot camp type of like incubator, but it also became like a validation engine, right? It validates companies. Like if you got into YC, most likely your chances of getting funding are much, much higher than everybody else, like everybody who didn't get into YC, right? So again, not absolute numbers, but the chances in terms of probability are much, much higher if you get into YC. So yeah, it is extremely valuable to get into such accelerators. Not all of them. There are a lot of bullshit accelerators who give you no value and have nothing. But YC 500, I think these kind of accelerators are very solid.
All right.
Okay,
All right.
great.
Thank you.
I think, Manu, I think you've covered a lot, and I think I personally learned a lot. I personally, and as you explain, things to us, I can feel that you have that internally, naturally, that drive of being, successful entrepreneur, and that also mixed with your immigrant background from, being from Tajikistan is really, I believe it's going to be valuable for all those who are watching and all those who are listening. So I think we appreciate your time, and I think we took more than we were planning to, so it went a little over than we were planning, but we covered a lot for us. And if we have anything else, we'll reach out to you with if questions, anything. We thank you very much for today's episode, and we really hope that others who are listening also gonna benefit from this, and also try to avoid things you told us to avoid, mistakes that you told us to, and things you asked us, you shared with us, hopefully going to be beneficial as well.
Yeah. Our listeners, we assuming immigrants are driven people. They don't want to just listen to someone talking, blathering, telling stories that are useless. So I think from that perspective, this was very useful. I think one of the major lessons is to maybe for some people who really are serious about it, go learn about lean startup, that validation that you mentioned so many times, testing your hypothesis. So at least it's an introductory step for those people. So thanks a lot for your time. This was really, really great. And
for all the listeners and viewers who are watching on YouTube or listening on podcast, so continue to listen to watch us on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel. Put your likes, put your comments, and give us your feedbacks. We have our immigrantbazaar@gmail.com, our web email address. Send us your feedback, ideas, who you want to see in our shows, like what do you want to learn as from the immigrant standpoint, of course. And those who are listening on podcasts, also follow us on the podcast, wherever you're listening, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else. And yeah, so we look forward to for next week's episode, which is going to be a different topic, of course. And until then, thank you, everybody. Enjoy your day. Have a great weekend. Have a rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. It was fun talking to you guys, and wish you all the best. And I'll definitely follow you guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.